Hello, Ryan Garland. I am your host of the Paradyme Shift. I cannot wait to expose the true inner depths of institutional wealth building and how to dig deep into real estate investing. Hey everybody, Ryan Garland here, founder and chairman of Paradyme. Thank you for joining us today. You are on the Paradyme Shift. We are sponsored by 10 Day Doors, PMG. They are dealing with all of our steel manufacturing for the famous barn caves. But today I am honored to have Steve Reid here. He's with Sandcastle Pools. And today you are going to be honored with his presence, and we're honored with his presence because he's going to share a little bit about his background. And he is the contractor we brought on to build the Dubai-inspired pool at the Barn Caves Community Center. So as you guys know, we like to brag about how much we align with the right people to put them in the right slots to develop the right projects. And for all of my investors and clients out there, you guys are relying on me to make good decisions and bring in the right people. And this is a little way to show you down to our pool contractor why it is we chose him. And I'm going to let him take the mic for a while because he's got a very impressive background. And in fact, anybody who needs a pool, whether it's a remodel or build new, this is going to be your guy. So you're going to be very impressed with him. The more time I spend with him, I'm more impressed as a human as well. And I think this is really cool. So Steve, thanks for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first I want to say thanks for giving me the opportunity on that job. Super excited. I think where I'm at, if the bigger scale projects don't keep coming, I'm going to have to leave Lake Havasu. So thank you.
Of course. Well, you were highly recommended. A lot of contractors that I'm working with on other projects, said that you're the man. And the referral source and word of mouth is really key. And this is such a small town. And, to be able to find the right guys for the right slots is really difficult. I mean, that's a whole other labor conversation.
Right.
But on top of you, having, I think you guys are doing the public pool over at the Riviera.
Yeah, we just wrapped it up.
Yeah,
I think they're working through some final details over there, but yeah, it's all done.
And they're going to be very selective. I love that group over there, what they developed and kind of how they operate. And I really respect their operation overall. But for them to choose you to do that pool, that spoke volumes of the caliber of what you do. And then obviously being able to see the finished product as obviously they were right about you. So it was perfect, man. So I think what I really want to do is allow you to take control over the mic for a minute. I want you to talk a little bit about your background. You said you've been doing this for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. And I give a lot of people respect a bit in the business, especially through the 2008 crash, because you really had to pivot, hence the name Paradyme, having to shift to try to survive, especially if you had a family at that time. I did. And it was a really tough time for me. But I would say that through those tough times is what built my brand. It really is who we are today because I want to be more conservative and I never want to go back through that financial hardship. And so a lot of guys that I align with seem to kind of have that same stake in their heart. They just don't want to go through that again. So I give a lot of respect to business owners who have really been able to power through that and then create infrastructure for security and stability. And from what I understand and what I've seen so far, you're that type of man. So let's talk a little bit about your background, man. Where'd you start? I know you like long walks on the beach and all, but let's talk about where you started.
So I started building pools when I was 15. I used to know this girl named Lisa. She was head of the building association. And I remember going to her and asking her, who's the biggest pool builder in town? I want to get a job. I want to work for, the biggest company. I want to learn. I want to grow. And at the time that ended up being Mojave. So I started there digging trenches. I remember my interview, a guy named Ken Cook hired me. And I remember him telling me, he's like, you're not going to go to college? And I was like, no, I got to start making money. And he's like, kid, I'm going to work you so hard. I'm going to make you wish you went to college. And I remember thinking to myself, I saw that as a challenge. Yeah. I worked with a crew full of Mexicans, started digging trenches, grew through that, tie-in rebar, mastered that, and went on to plumbing. Kind of went, became proficient in that part, started setting tile, coping, operating equipment, excavating pools. I was on a shotcrete crew for a few years, plaster crew for a few years. So I really spent a lot of time in start to finish construction, which the buildup of, everything I went through to where I'm at now, doing design and project managing and things like that, it really gave me a good foundation to understand how to prevent, problems, risk management, and, especially when you're talking about swimming pools, bodies of water's very, it's corrosive. It very, we got to build these vessels that are supposed to hold water and not damage things around that are supposed to sit in place. And there's a lot that goes into it. And after I think I worked there for maybe 10 years, maybe a little longer. And then I felt like I had a really good grasp on the business, at least the construction side, which at the time, as I'm still young, but a young kid, I thought I was ready to go. So I ended up getting my contractor's license. This was early on. And it was called Bay Pools, and I built pools. I did a handful of pools. Things were going really good. Went through a divorce, same thing. But I had some failure there. I wasn't quite ready. I didn't have everything I needed on the business side of it. And ultimately that was the real kind of nail in the coffin. Mm-hmm. So, when you have a failure, you can do one of two things. Either you can give up or, it's kind of that
recalibrate.
Mindset. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. I'm going to show people that, I'm good at doing this. I just wasn't good at everything. So
that's what I do. I know what I'm good at. I just hire people to fill in the spots I'm suck at, man. Right. That's my strength, is identifying what I suck at nowadays.
So I built pools. Actually, funny story. I met the guys at the Riviera, like Luke Still, Michael Gordon. When I was 18, I remodeled Luke Still's pool as like a side job, owner builder. And when I had Bay, it was still when the Riviera was being talked about. I sat in on meetings when they're talking about building rooftop pools and kind of went through, a lot of the risk and things that need to happen and what they're up against, potential costs and things like that. So early on, I kind of had a leg in with them. But then when you talk about how many years later when they actually got stuff going and the growth.
Another 10 years later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the growth that I had, a few conversations in and, just that relationship that we had. And so that's how I ended up landing that. And we're building another pool for them. They're doing 3 in the Riviera. But to get back to what I was saying, after Bay Pools, I shut everything down and had that failure. I went to work at Sandcastle. So I'm not actually the owner of Sandcastle, if you don't know that, by the way. A guy named Brock Kessler, he owns the company. Myself and 2 guys that work for me, we all went to work there, and I got on there doing design, sales, and then that ended up turning into some project management stuff just because of the background that I have. And everything was going good, but I kind of felt, when you come from being a guy out in the field, actually building with your hands, and then you go into an office setting where you're designing, which is cool. I love designing and, that whole part of it. But I just felt this part of me that, I was missing something. Like I needed to be out there building. So the first couple years I was like, well, let me go out there in the summertime. The guys are behind on plumbing. Let me plumb a pool, let me tile some. And I did. But, I started to figure out that wasn't what needed to happen. We needed to focus on growing the guys. Mm-hmm. I couldn't go in and do that, and things wouldn't operate efficiently that way. And so I ended up finding a university called Reshaping University. So I've been going there for about 3 years now, and they teach the science of pool construction. So what happens in concrete, during the curing process? What does a concrete matrix look like? What under a microscope? Hydraulics and the math behind what size pipe you need to move, X amount of GPMs of water, and thermo expansion on materials and how to plan for it. And you really start to learn the detail, geotechnical issues, and being able to visually identify potential soils issues, and the process of properly walking someone through to build out a set of construction documents on a swimming pool that you won't have a failure on. Yeah. So getting in that set, you get in a room full of the top pool builders in the world are teaching these classes. If you look into it, it's guys like Rick Chafee and Dave Peterson and Bill Drakely, who sits on, ACI, which is, American Concrete Institute, and, all these top dog professionals, and you come from a place like Havasu where you think you're doing great. It's like, oh yeah, we're the best in town. You start to realize there are guys so much smarter than you. Mm-hmm. So that whole process and timeline in my life was very humbling. And I've really been focusing on, learning the fine details in the science behind pool construction. And since I've started going, it's made a huge difference. I can walk on site and I feel more confident about, building pools off cliff sides. We were talking about that, the project I have going for Tony. And
that's in the Riviera as well.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So a lot of other pool builders were walking up there scared they wouldn't touch it, but they don't know the process of how to approach it. And you learn that when you seek that education. It's passion driven for me. So,
well, something like that would be an engineering nightmare.
Correct.
Yeah. And safety nightmare.
Right.
They're not doing it right.
Right. So,
now you were talking about prior to us jumping on, and what happened in 2008? You said you started traveling.
So 08, I still worked for Mojave Pools, and things came to a standstill here pretty much. As we all know, anyone who was around here during that time. So
it was dead.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much everywhere for the most part, but here definitely, because this was a secondary market, retirement community. Yeah, it's dead.
I think I was 20 years old at the time, so no girlfriend, no kid. I mean, I think I had a girlfriend, but no kids, nothing holding me here. And my boss at the time was like, "Well, how do you feel about traveling?" So we started traveling. We were building pools, and we did a few in Roswell, New Mexico, and we were traveling all over. And then one of our friends was down in the Virgin Islands on St. Thomas on vacation. They had an earthquake, and what they were doing out there was they were building pour in place pools. So they pour the floor, then pour the walls, then they have a cold joint, keyways, and earthquake happens, separates, pools leaking. They had no way to build a monolithic structure, concrete structure for a pool. So we went up there with the idea, Bart's just shipped a container, a gunite rig, and, ended up, there was a few remodel jobs, and then he ended up landing the jobs for Jeff Epstein on Little St. James was the name of his island. Mm-hmm. So I spent over a year on his island building 2 massive pools.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was fun. I mean, at the time I had heard about, everything going on, but I was 20 years old. I didn't care about any of that. It was just, I'm in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
I'm I got a house on the beach, I could throw a rock into the ocean. So,
sure.
But I remember one time, so we had one of his pools completely dug. I just finished plumbing it. All the rebar was tied. Everything was ready to go. We were ready for inspection. He's like, well, let me, everything looks good. Let me get up in the helicopter and take a look at it and just make sure everything's good. And comes, he does that, comes back down, and he's like, nah, it's got to be 3 foot closer to the ocean. We had to rip out half that pool. And because you can't just excavate a pool 3 more feet when everything's plumb tied.
Yeah. It's a whole different level. Yeah.
So saw cut everything, ripped out half the pool, all the plumbing, moved it, 3 foot closer. And I remember at the time I was upset, but then I'm like, well, it just means I get to be in the Virgin Islands.
And he's going to pay you more money.
Yeah, so we got paid more. So, but yeah, really cool experience. I spent like 2 years out there, met, a handful of friends. Some of them still live there. Super cool area to be, to just see that different mindset,
Yeah.
So
And then you came back here. What year did you end up coming back?
So it's hard to remember when things started picking back up.
For me, it was like 13, 14-ish. I started feeling a huge shift.
Right. So I think I came back here, around when we finished I would come back for like a couple weeks at a time during those two years. And then I was somewhere around 2013, 2014. And then I ended up leaving Mojave at that point. And then I went to work for Sandcastle.
Got it.
So,
well, man, when we reached out to you, Dennis, I think, made the connection, right? So I was like, dude, we're building a pool. I need the best of the best, period, into story, because I want to mimic the same pool in Dubai called Club Drift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beach Club Drift. And I'm like, because my wife and I had spent some time there, and I absolutely loved that place. And it was so cool because I think what the impact for me was just the people that were there. Just when you go to different countries and you travel, you kind of have a different perspective of life. That's why I'm smiling when you're talking about the Virgin Islands. It's kind of the experience. And that's why people talk about don't spend all your money on material things, spend money on experience.
Right.
And when we went there, it was so impactful for me. It was one of my favorite places in the world. Of course, it's Dubai. Who's not going to love being there? But it was so much fun, and it was so peaceful. They had like a saxophone player and playing like modern music, but like with a saxophone,
Right.
and the food was amazing. The cabanas were like, the design of the cabanas, I've never seen anything like that before. Just the layout of the pool was very comfortable. People just truly enjoyed it. It was big enough for everyone to just kind of lay out and hang out, and it wasn't too busy. It was just, the vibe was like damn near perfect.
Right.
And I really loved the backstory of that square, and I like the culture of that. And that's why I was like, well, shoot, man, if I can bring that kind of feel for me, I want other people to feel that, even though they're not in Dubai.
I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I'm trying to bring that feeling of it. And honestly, it was the best, because I remember sitting there and I was so thankful, because I had lost everything in 08, man. And I was kind of rebuilding at the time. And so when I got there and I'm like, I got a chance to look at all the cranes. It's almost like this world, we look at the world in our own eyes, and we're like, we're stuck in our own world, right? But when you travel, you realize like the world's so much bigger than you think it is on a day-to-day basis. And when you look at things, like you said, you're now around people that are much smarter than you. You're a lot, it's humbling. And that's where I think's happened. I've been around so many different people, and have traveled, and I've been humbled so much that I want to continue that feeling.
Right.
It makes me better, and I want to bring that culture to Lake Havasu, where people may not be able to afford to get there, but they're going to be able to experience the feeling of it. And I think I've always learned from other, let's just call it mentors in the business, where if you're able to provide that type of experience for people, you're going to do well, right? It's always about the experience you're going to deliver for people. And that's really ultimately what I'm trying to do. So a Dubai inspired design pool in like little old Lake Havasu, like nobody would have ever thought about that. And now that we're kind of talking about it and people are hearing about it, like my own kind of close friends and network, they're telling me that people are just excited about it. They can't wait to, see it actually happen. Is it really going to happen? All that fun stuff. So it was important for me to align with the right group, and you guys kept coming up. And you weren't just referred by Dennis. There was a couple other people that brought you guys up, and that's a testament to your guys' track record, but also your integrity, because this is a small town, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
it's not easy. I mean, as you know, it's always a struggle, but I love it. It's my passion. So, when I heard about the Paradyme job, I actually, Den, the old owner of Sandcastle, I got a heads up on it. And in my mind, I was like, I want this job. Like, I know what I know, and I know how hard I've been working. I just gotta, I gotta build the pool.
you're like, I want that pool.
Yeah.
I got to build the pool.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So let's talk a little bit about and I appreciate that. It's really cool, because I knew people were thinking about it. We got a lot of phone calls. I mean, even still to this day, people are hitting me up. Hey, we do HVAC, whatever. But it was very important that we select the right group. Let's talk a little bit about the design of the pool. Like, let's talk about when we sat down and we showed you what we were doing, and you went back and you're like, okay, well, I think, because right now you got it to what, 25 feet wide by 70 long?
Something like that. Yeah. So, going back to that, I think there's been a lot of work I've been putting in with the architectural drawing side of it too. I've been taking, 3D Basecamp, Google puts it on. I go to their courses, really trying to focus on, a good set of drawings and rendering. So when I met you, I think in my mind, I really wanted to step outside and, a little bit more than what I normally would have, because I wanted the job so much, just to show you, the passion that I have, and, that I feel like I'm the right guy, and I was hoping it was a good fit. So I wanted to, take it into SketchUp and draw it and give you a professional rendering, which typically I would sign a design contract for. But in this case, I wanted the job, and the bigger jobs and the cool stuff is where my passion's at. The cookie cutter stuff and, the basic pool spa, that's fine, and it's cool. It keeps everything going. But for me, 20 years, I'm
you need
done
something new.
Doing the little stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ready for the bigger stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and the commercial compliance is completely different than residential compliance.
Right. And it changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just through the course of, the Riviera pool and the changes that we saw there, I mean, things are constantly changing. Kids are always drowning, and, it's always, so.
Yeah. You got to, and you always have to be on your toes, because you can get caught up building it the wrong way, and they're like, you're not passing inspection.
Correct.
Rip it all out.
Right. I think that happened not too long ago in like Texas or something. A kid got sucked to the bottom of a main drain and eviscerated, and
oh my goodness,
it wasn't plumbed correctly. And I can't remember when, but I heard something about that. So it's a big deal. You got to know what you're doing and build things the right way.
So tell me a little bit about the water feature.
So the water feature.
So by the way, real quick before you start, I for everybody that's listening to this, if you know me well enough, I have like these big visions and everyone's like, that is really, really cool. I'm going to see how I can make it actually work. So Steve's been able to kind of dig his heels in and see how we can do this one water feature that normally doesn't have a water feature, because the actual one does have a water feature. It does.
Yeah.
So the one in Dubai actually has a sheet of water. It comes right through the middle of that.
Does it? Actually, I didn't see any pictures.
I'm pretty sure. I'll look it up right now.
The first thing I started doing was hunting and looking at everything through that. But
I'm pretty sure it does.
I mean, that's essentially the focal point of that pool.
Mm-hmm.
So Rick Chafee is actually, he's the owner of a company called Red Rock Pools. And I told Rick I was going to mention him on this podcast, and that I look at him like a mentor, but people look at him, I mean, a lot of his colleagues, and every time I go to a Water Shapes event, all these other people that are on his level, they openly say he's the best pool builder in the world. And anyone listening, if you look up Rick Chafee at Red Rock Pools, he builds amazing projects. The guy's a genius. He's got a bachelor's in construction science, and he's one of those guys, when you talk to him, like someone like me in the industry, pool industry, you talk to him and he's just loaded with knowledge. So I actually have him. He's also one of my teachers at Water Shapes. So he's the guy building out the plan set for your pool.
Really?
So I was talking to Rick, and he's like, dude, this water feature's badass. He's like, you gotta talk him into doing a printing rain descent or a digital rain curtain. And I'm like, Rick, what are you talking about? Like, I've never heard of a digital rain curtain. And he sends me a couple videos, and what it does is it actually prints animations and colors through the water. So like, for your sake, you had mentioned you were going to do, potentially rent it out for weddings or birthday parties or things like that. Well, now what that would allow you to do is personalize the pool to the people, whoever's wedding it is, congratulations, Mrs. Whoever. And you could take your Paradyme logo and make it look like it's rotating in a circle and animated, or just
in a sheet of water.
A sheet of water.
Yeah.
The water is the printer. So, really cool feature. You won't know it's there, and it'll come alive at night. So just kind of one of those added little bonuses that people won't know is there unless they show up in the evening hours.
Dude, how cool is that, man? Well, I remember we were talking about it. I think you brought it to my attention. Do I want to have that?
Right.
You know? And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I kind of do.
Right.
So you brought a good idea. Cause I was looking at, there was I don't know if you did the pool. I know Ryan was involved. I think he was doing some of the actual overhang and the structural, like, patio cover that the water came out of the patio cover and
Yeah,
sheeted
he
down.
showed me that.
Yeah. So that was actually pretty cool. And I think when I saw them, like, guys are doing that out here. Heck, that's awesome. And then you brought it up right after that. I'm like, yeah, if we can get a sheet of water to go through this thing, that'd be killer.
Right. I think, when you look, if you're trying to rent the space out for a wedding, there's always that little thing that makes the person say, hey, let's do it here, whether it's the photo or the surrounding or just the space as a whole. So, I'm hoping we can make that work, and because I think it'll be one of those features that, that person that might not have rented it out would rent it out for that reason.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Well, and honestly, I love that. One of the things I thought was very professional is when I walk into like let's say an office, and like you say, you have a screen that says, "Hey, welcome, Ryan. Thanks for joining us today." Like just kind of like, it's cheesy but very professional.
Right.
I know that sounds weird, but when you're doing that for someone who wants to rent out the space, I think that's really cool. Happy birthday, this person, or hey, welcome, thanks for joining us, or whatever it is. I think it just shows like polish, and I wanted,
absolutely.
And that's, if you haven't noticed yet, that's how I like to kind of, I'd like to think Paradyme has that polish.
I think it does. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So it was funny because I remember the first time we talked, I said, hey, just do me a favor. Just make sure you guys deliver on this pool. I do not want to be hung up on my CO. And you're like, I got you. And you actually you've been beating everybody else to the punch. You're ready to go. Everybody else, we're waiting for everyone else.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, final details on this digital rain curtain, and if we can pull it off and it makes sense with the budget, and then, decking choices and a couple little things, and we're ready to go to ADEQ. So
did you ever go with Dennis up to that property he has in the foothills?
I didn't.
Go take a look at it. I went up there the other day because the decking that you have on the Riviera, I like it. Don't get me wrong. But the decking that he has up at that pool, and now it's two different worlds because that's residential, you're in commercial. But he does think, and Dennis is smart, but he's not always right. If we can use the material he's got up there for the decking for this one, I'd love it, man. You should see it. It's pretty cool.
I haven't told you yet, but I talked to Rick about that, and it's an R11 finish on that, and that roughness does work with ADEQ standards, so we can use that porcelain decking. So I didn't think we'd be able to, but anything R11 and beyond, it works. So.
Well, when I went up there, and it's pretty impressive how sticky in essence it is, right? That grit is impressive. I was like, yeah, you can get this wet and no one's slipping on this thing.
I would say it's, in today's times, probably the most popular decking.
Is it?
And the most, for the people that are going modern and, an up-to-date look, I don't think there's a better looking decking. Yeah, we're using it quite a bit right now, especially with the porcelain turn down edging where the decking actually waterfalls into the pool, no coping overhang. So very popular, and it's a good look. So we did get that approval. We can use that.
And it doesn't get as hot either.
No,
that's a big deal.
Yeah. Everything's going to get hot, but
out here. Everything's going to get hot out here, man.
Yeah, it won't
the ground,
be bad.
the dirt's hot, 20 feet deep, it's hot, man, out here. But it's not going to be as hot. I think people can get out of the pool and kind of walk, at a decent pace and get under cover and be okay. Because it didn't look like it because I was out there, I actually put my hands on the ground and sat on it for a second. I know your feet are a little more sensitive than your hands, but I'm sitting there going like, this isn't bad. If you're moving, you're not bad.
It's not as bad as a concrete paver. A concrete paver is going to get hotter. So
so that product is great. Yeah. So we, obviously, so let's just talk about the process for you. So when would you ultimately engage? So we're ultimately going to do the foundation for both the gym itself, the building, and then we're going to start the parking structure. So I know a lot of guys up here, like for example, in the foothills where I live, a lot of the builders are actually building the pools and digging the pools and gunniting the pools before they actually start doing the foundation of the house, even though they have enough room to maneuver back there. But, is that something you do? What would you, where are you going to fit in on the construction process?
So we do that. I got two going like that right now. We're in there digging the pool and there's no house, but elevations, and you really have to have everyone on the same page because the concrete guy goes out and they're setting the forms, and maybe their laser hasn't been calibrated for a year and they're setting their, transit out, 50 feet away and they get beam dispersal and maybe they're a half inch off, but we got, a set of 80 EQ plans where our deck slope has to be perfect. So that's what worries me. We typically only go in before there's a height, at least like a foundation, or something to go off of. If we don't have access or we're going to lose that, that's when we'll go in.
Got it.
But otherwise you're putting more risk in there than you need to, I would say, because by the time we come in and we get that thing to shotcrete and we're ready to finish, I mean, there's so many things going on with that parking structure alone you're doing. I mean, I'm sure Dennis is going to have, it's all precast concrete. So putting that together and subs to do something like that, I'm sure that's a struggle.
Well, dude, it's hard to find guys that are actually doing that and can do it out here. Now we found a couple of groups and I think we're fine, but my actual biggest concern was putting up the structural steel, because that cantilever, in essence, cover that's going off the back of the gym is basically right over the pool. It's real close.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to have, I mean, that stuff's craned in for sure, so, and I think what they're trying to do is not have any type of welding on site. They may have to. We're trying to maneuver around that right now. I think we're finalizing some of the engineering there. But they may have to, that one piece has been its own problem child.
Right.
From weight load to wind load to all that stuff. So we kind of got the box of the gym. Then it was how to get the pulley system for the car.
Yeah.
And then it was that overhang, really. And that, so I was talking to Dennis. I said, Dennis, I know we're kind of going through, logistics, but have you thought about when we're starting the pool compared to when we're going to erect this? And he's like, I think we're going to do all the structural, get all the foundation and structural up first before we start digging that pool. I would agree.
Make sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I have a sticky feeling that right where that pool would be is where they're going to put that crane to get that stuff up on that side. Because that is a whole nother, I mean, you could boom over, no problem, but it depends on how much we want to spend on a freaking crane.
Right. And then even if the pool was at shotcrete and they're cutting steel and all those metal shards and stuff, and maybe we cleaned them all out, but we can't tell. And then we got rust spots coming through. So, I mean, the way I see it, if there's a lot to get done, and once the back finish is on and you guys are working on the inside stuff, or I mean, ultimately, I don't know the timeline, but I would say at minimum, elevations and heights, and then we move in. So
I would agree.
Control that.
Yeah, we'll talk to Dennis. I was talking to everybody. He's like, I think that's the way we'll end up doing it, and I would agree. But that we're actually going to get the parking structure is going to be up first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the parking structure is probably going to go up first before the actual building. So the parking structure goes up, and then the building goes up. That's how we're going to do it. Yeah, because that parking structure, again, architects and engineers are like, we just want to maneuver around that and not have any problems. So foundation for both, and then we'll do the parking structure, and then right after that, we're going to go vertical on structural steel.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
I think a lot of people are excited for this thing to get done. So,
well, it's crazy because when I fly out of here, I see the project all the time, and I'm just like, you can only imagine what it's like to be in my shoes right now. I'm like, oh, can we just please start? I'm sitting on the Capitol. I need to go. So we're just biting at the bit. And I'm looking at the clock going, I have never wanted 1 year to go by so fast in my life,
Years go by
I'm getting
too.
older, and I'm like, I want things to slow down. And now I'm like, I want something to speed up like that. So yeah, we're really excited. We keep getting good PR. You may or may not know this, but some of our investors are even in the city council. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So we're getting a lot of support, as you can imagine. So that helps.
Yeah, they just actually opened an RFQ, all the RF stuff and all that with city government jobs. I'm still learning it, but they opened a RFQ on a pool project, a
community pool, right?
Expansion at the aquatic center.
Yeah.
So I did went to a city council meeting a few weeks ago and had heard some rumors on, what was going out for plans and stuff. So that's another project where I'm like, well, it's a giant lap pool and it's not quite as cool, or I wouldn't say anything fancy like what you're doing. But for me, it was like, well, and these are rumors. Who's saying $250,000 for a set of plans on this?
I know. I wasn't going to go down that road, but I'm hearing stories. I'm like, are you guys nuts?
Me,
like, where's this?
Whoever's watching. I think the goal for me though was we don't need to spend that. Put that towards the bridge that you're building across, because I can get a set of plans from Rick Chafee, the guy I just mentioned, who is arguably the best pool builder in the world, for like $26,000, built out, ready. This guy builds rooftop pools, the best of the best, with acrylic windows and just, you know, resort style backyards, multi-million. He does like 20 pools a year, and they're all, you know, $2 million, $3 million, $20 million projects. And he's the best. So, you know, Rick and I talked about it before I did that meeting. And I was, you know, when I went in there, which I'd never done a city council meeting, I was nervous and, you know, whatever, but that was what I said. I was like, well, you know, keep it in town and, you know, give me a shot at it, and let's do a design build, and, you know, just see. And whoever this other guy is bidding, or whoever the other, whatever, you know, consider us all. And they did decide to do design build, and then they released that RFQ today. So I printed it out. That's another one though. I'm excited. So I'll start.
If you can somehow, some way say, oh, by the way, I'm doing Paradyme's pool, you know, out there at the gym, that may help, because they know, you know, commercial, you know, and obviously you're going to talk about, you did the Riviera. Right. So if you can kind of get both of those in there, I think they're going to be like, okay, well, that's going to be a good bet to maybe try.
A lot of, you know, what we're doing, what people are doing with these bigger projects too, a lot of it comes down to resources. So, you know, one of the great things I have is with Watershapes, it's like a fraternity. So all these top pool builders, you know, I'll call Rick, the guy's busy. He answers my call almost every single time. Or Bill Drakely, who sits on, you know, the ACI board, Shot Creep, you know, all these guys, when I get into these situations where you need to know the right answer, and you know how that goes. People, you know, they come off as knowing what's right, but is it right? So, you know, resources and getting these high-end projects done. Who are you going to call? Who's giving you, you know, the answers on what to do? And for me, I got these, you know, a handful of these guys in my corner. So when I'm looking for information that I don't know, it's coming from these guys that are, you know,
literally the best.
Yeah, literally the best. So, and that was kind of, you know, what fueled me with the city thing behind, because, you know, when I'm talking to Rick about it, and Rick's like, no, like, you need to go down there like they're telling you to do.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens. I'm excited about that too, but probably more so just to, you know, do something for the city. Like I look at it like that.
So you're helping the community.
Right. Yeah.
So it's close to your heart. Yeah. Right on, man. Well, dude, Steve, it's an honor to have you here, man. It's very enlightening to even get to know more about your background. You know, I really appreciate it. The relationship, the friendship's been great. I'm really looking forward to getting this done and putting that in our, you know, another, you know, feather in our quiver, if you will. And I think it'd be really cool to do all the marketing for this. So when this thing is built and done, we're going to do some cross-pollinating on marketing to continue to build awareness of how strong you guys are at the game. And for those of you that are watching or listening, if you guys are in Lake Havasu and you need a pool, Sandcastle Pools, Steve Reid, he is your man. So thank you guys all for listening. Thanks you for joining me, buddy.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it, bro.